In a small, forgotten village nestled in the mountains, there lived a poor man named Raghav. His house was more of a hut, patched together with mud and thatched straw, and he owned little more than the clothes on his back. Every morning, as the sun rose over the hills, Raghav would sit outside his humble dwelling, watching the world stir into life with a calmness that puzzled many of his neighbors. Despite his poverty, Raghav was known for his kindness. He never complained about his lot in life, nor did he show envy toward the wealthy merchants and landowners who passed through the village. Instead, Raghav found joy in helping others. If someone needed an extra hand in the fields, Raghav was there. If a neighbor fell ill, Raghav would sit by their side, offering comfort, even though he had nothing to offer but his company. In contrast to Raghav's simple life, there was a rich merchant named Kishore who lived in the grandest house in the village. Kishore's wealth was unimaginable to most. His estate sprawled over acres, filled with lush gardens, marble fountains, and servants who waited on him day and night. He dressed in fine silk robes, wore gold rings on every finger, and always had more than enough food to eat. But despite his riches, Kishore was a deeply unhappy man. His heart was full of greed and fear. He constantly worried that his wealth might disappear one day, that thieves would come in the night and rob him, or that his business would fail. He rarely slept peacefully, his nights spent counting his gold instead of dreaming. One day, Kishore noticed Raghav sitting under the large banyan tree near the village square, humming a simple tune as he watched a group of children play. Kishore, as usual, was on his way to check on his businesses, but something about Raghav's serene expression unsettled him. How could a man with nothing be so content? Driven by curiosity, and perhaps a tinge of jealousy, Kishore approached Raghav. "How can you, a poor man, sit here with a smile on your face?" he asked, his voice tinged with disdain. "You have no money, no fine clothes, no servants. What do you have to be happy about?" Raghav looked up at the wealthy merchant, his smile never fading. "I have all that I need," he said simply. Kishore frowned. "All that you need? You live in a hut that can barely keep out the rain. You wear the same ragged clothes every day, how can that be enough?" Raghav stood and gestured to the world around him. "Look at the sky," he said. "Look at the trees, the birds, the river. Every day, I am surrounded by beauty. I have my health, I have my neighbors, and I have peace in my heart. That is more valuable than all the riches in the world." Kishore shook his head in disbelief. "You are a fool," he muttered. "Without wealth, there is no security, no comfort. Money is what brings happiness." Raghav smiled again, but this time there was a hint of sadness in his eyes. "Perhaps, in your world, that is true. But I have learned that happiness comes from within, not from the gold in one's pockets." Kishore, unwilling to believe that such a simple philosophy could be true, decided to put Raghav's words to the test. He invited the poor man to his estate, offering him food, clothing, and a comfortable bed for the night. "Stay with me for a week," Kishore said, "and let's see if your so-called happiness can survive in the lap of luxury." Raghav, always willing to help others and knowing Kishore was struggling with something deeper than he let on, agreed. For the first few days, Raghav lived in Kishore's grand mansion. He ate the finest meals, slept in the softest bed, and wore clothes of silk and wool. Kishore watched him carefully, expecting Raghav to be dazzled by the wealth and comfort. But Raghav remained the same, calm, content, and smiling. "Isn't this life better?" Kishore asked one evening, as they sat on the veranda overlooking the estate's gardens. Raghav shook his head gently. "The bed is soft, yes, and the food is delicious, but these things do not fill the heart. They are fleeting comforts. What matters most to me is the peace I carry within myself." Frustrated, Kishore pressed further. "What peace? You have nothing. How can you have peace when you don't know where your next meal will come from?" Raghav looked at Kishore with compassion. "I may not have material wealth, but I trust that life will provide for me as it always has. I do not fear the future because I have learned to live in the present. When you live each moment fully, fear has no place in your heart." Kishore fell silent. He realized that while he had everything money could buy, he was constantly worrying about the future, about his businesses, his investments, and the safety of his wealth. Despite all his riches, he had never known the peace that Raghav spoke of. That night, as Kishore lay in his luxurious bed, he tossed and turned, unable to sleep. His mind raced with thoughts of potential losses and failures. Meanwhile, Raghav slept peacefully in the guest room, as content as if he were in his simple hut. By the end of the week, Kishore was more troubled than ever. He couldn't understand how Raghav, who had nothing, seemed to possess the very thing he had been searching for his entire life, inner peace. Desperate for answers, Kishore sought out the village elder, a wise man named Guruji. Guruji had lived in the village longer than anyone and was known for his deep understanding of life's mysteries. "Guruji," Kishore said, after explaining the situation, "I don't understand. I have everything, yet I am never truly happy. Raghav has nothing, yet he is content. How is this possible?" Guruji smiled softly, his eyes full of understanding. "You see, Kishore, happiness is not something that can be bought or acquired. It is a state of mind, a way of being. Raghav has learned to find joy in the simple things, in the present moment. His heart is full of gratitude, not desire. You, on the other hand, are always seeking more, always fearing that what you have will be taken away. That is why you are never satisfied." "But how can I change?" Kishore asked, his voice filled with desperation. "I don't want to live in fear anymore. I want to feel the peace that Raghav feels." Guruji looked at Kishore kindly. "The first step is to let go of your attachment to wealth. Understand that money is a tool, not the source of happiness. Begin to focus on what you already have, rather than what you lack. Practice gratitude, and learn to live in the present moment, just as Raghav does." Kishore nodded slowly, realizing that his entire life had been spent chasing after things that could never truly satisfy him. He thanked Guruji and returned to his estate, determined to change his ways. Over the next few months, Kishore began to simplify his life. He spent less time worrying about his businesses, and more time helping the people in his village. He gave generously to those in need, and he began to practice mindfulness, learning to appreciate each moment for what it was. As Kishore's heart opened, he found that the fear and anxiety that had once plagued him began to fade. He no longer counted his gold at night, nor did he fret about the future. Instead, he found joy in the present, in the beauty of the world around him, just as Raghav had taught him. One day, As he walked through the village, Kishore saw Raghav sitting under the banyan tree, humming his usual tune. Kishore smiled and joined him. "Thank you, Raghav," Kishore said quietly. "You've shown me that true wealth isn't in what we own, but in the peace we carry in our hearts." Raghav smiled warmly. "I am glad you have found that peace, Kishore. Remember, it was always within you. You just needed to stop searching for it in the wrong places." From that day forward, Kishore lived a life of simplicity and gratitude. Though he still had his wealth, it no longer defined him. He understood that true happiness came not from the riches of the world, but from the riches of the heart. And as for Raghav, he continued to live his humble life, content with what he had, knowing that he was far wealthier than most people could ever understand.
Moral of the story: true happiness comes from within, not from material possessions.
Don't forget to like and subscribe for more language learning content.